G'day, Doggies fans, all things Bulldogs. It's NRL Media Watch, episode 14. It's going to be a quick one. Probably won't be answering many questions on this one. If anyone even jumps on, feel free to say hello. But basically just going to give a little insight into what I'm seeing at the moment and needs to stop. So the current hypocrisy in the way that the media are able to look at the officiating of the game, the way that they talk about the concussion problem for players and ex-players and head clashes and the like. It has to stop. We need to have the focus now to protect this game. I'm loving the game of rugby league. I do miss some of the things, and I think we've moved past some of the things such as shoulder charges, etc., etc. But look, when we're looking at this game of rugby league, the way it looks now is going to be completely different in 5, 10, 15 years if something isn't done to change the rhetoric about what's going on with the game. The way that, with Bulldog Richie talking about banning the kickoff, it's ridiculous with penalties given and suspensions given for head clashes. I know Jamin Salmon had one. We had Taylor May earlier. We had Dale Finucane last year when he smashed Critter's ear. These are accidents. Look, we draw the line at if you lead with the head and you're kamikaze, so be it. If you're throwing out an arm and you're smacking someone across the jaw and knocking them out, that's never been allowed in the game. If you're spear tackling somebody, that's never been allowed in the game. But if someone's head barely touches the ground, but they're in a slightly dangerous position, penalty, move on. These suspensions are ridiculous. The suspension for Jamin Salmon, now he's out for 6 weeks anyway, incidentally. But to be suspended when he's rushing up towards the end of the game to put pressure on someone, gets him slightly late, was a little bit pathetic and careless. And look, if he got penalised, to me, it's a 50-50. He gets penalised or he doesn't. It's not a big deal. No one really cared about the penalty, except for the two idiots carrying on in the commentary box, the way they were going on. Vossi and bloody Corey Parker, who it's quite funny, every Canterbury fan says that he doesn't like the Bulldogs. So he must be saying something consistently against the Bulldogs for us to have that perception. But the point I want to make in regards to this is that if people start talking about this NRL rhetoric and the commentators and the way they go on about concussions, the way that they, carry on about referees putting the whistle away in Golden Point, yet in a grand final where an important match where a referee doesn't blow the whistle for the whole match, apparently he's the greatest referee of all time, and that was the greatest spectacle because the ref put the whistle away. But when they put the whistle away in Golden Point, suddenly there's criticism. Oh, the person wasn't square. The blockers were there. You can't have it both ways. And they're making people crazy. They're making themselves crazy, and they're making me pretty pissed off about it. Something needs to be done. The media need to be called out, because they need to come here and protect the freaking game of rugby league, in my opinion. And by that, I need not just some of the ex-players to say banning the kickoff's bullshit. You can tell that the likes of Braith and Jammer and a lot of the old players are like looking at these journalists going, what the hell are you talking about banning the kickoff? One of the most important parts of our game, in the fabric of our game. The kickoffs are important. I can draw some really long bows to different things that happen in society that are accidents and cause damage. But the stuff we eat and drink is probably doing more damage to our brains than the impacts from rugby league. Getting tackled in the sternum, you can crack ribs, can end your life, but it's legal. You can have your head smash and hit the ground and be knocked out that way. It's still an accident, but you've still literally helped that person get damage to their head. If it's an accidental head clash and you're not leading with the head, in fact, Salmon's actually the one who's probably stopped in that instance against Tamari Martin, and Martin sort of just kept running into the contact, and it's a head clash. Salmon's busted his jaw. You know, that's not going to help his future, brain, because that would have obviously had an impact. Who knows if you got concussed from it or not? You're still getting hit in the jaw. The media need to be putting this whole discussion away. It needs to be put away. It needs to be simply talked about that lawyers need to be involved in all contracts for rugby league players that are signing with representative clubs of the NRL. And if they're under 18, the parents have to give permission. That there's a good chance that your child is going to suffer some long-term dementia or some debilitating diseases, or potentially lose the use of their arm, or whatever it is, if they play this game. And guess what? It won't diminish the numbers of people playing. It won't. People are still going to get injured and have diseases and whatever else. They need to draw a line in the stand now and say, this is it. If you hit someone in the head, you're penalised. If you deliberately hit someone in the head, you get a sin bin or a send-off. Make it black and white. But when there's accidental head clashes, no one should be getting suspended for that unless they're doing an 8 miles and deliberately leading with the head to hit someone in the jaw or the face with their head in a tackle. If they're running up to put on a big hit and it goes wrong, penalise them for sure. But to suspend them and carry on about the inconsistencies in officiating, are you kidding me? The way that they carried on after the Jamin Salmon hit was ridiculous. It was absolutely ridiculous. And Canterbury, of all teams, who have sat there and watched, losing players to the bin for hip drops on numerous occasions, and then having the same happen to us and seeing it not even penalised, let alone sin binned, after watching Latrell knock the Fox out after a professional foul should have been given the play before, and Isaiah Tass. Not even a penalty. But we lose the game. That's all right. We lose our winger, our international winger. But this is about the whole game, right? The inconsistency is already there, and it's always going to be there. You're just never going to get it right. And I can cop that. But what I can't cop is these journalists who continually try to raise the agenda of we've got to protect the players. Yeah, the players need protections. They need insurance for sure. They need to have a life after football. They need to be protected and helped in many ways as they can. But when they're getting paid well, they should also have to invest in their future like we do. And they should know the risks they're taking. And they're still going to take it. Does the park footballer on the weekend risk anything less? Does he risk anything less? Does the park footballer who runs it off the back fence and gets smashed or smashes the player trying to tackle him? What's the difference? You're trying to protect the player. The result's the same. A player can do damage to himself trying to tackle someone as much as they can be damaged by being tackled by someone. It's that type of game. It needs to be put to bed. The journalists need to come out and say that the NRL just needs to make sure that in their contracts that they are protected from litigation moving forward, and that there's people involved in the signing of these contracts so that everyone is aware of all the possible things that can go wrong. Just like when you take a pill from the doctor at the pharmacist, there's about 1 million different things. When your partner goes and gets on the pill when they're younger or whatever, there's about 500 different potential side effects they could have. Well, it's about time Rugby League to protect the government from litigation. The same with the vaccinations. You've got to waive all that stuff when you do it. So it's the same with Rugby League. If you know you're going into a contact sport, you could not only lose your brain function, you could lose. Look at Luke Vella. Went to tackle someone, he's lost the use of his arm. He's now a great coach and probably going to end up as a first grade coach. There needs to be, the media need to stop this bullshit where they come in and keep talking about this. We can fix this as a game if the media do their part. So as fans, I just want to fucking ignore them, but you can't because they just keep going on about it. On and on and on. They sit there and they talk about as I said before, they sit there and say on one hand they want to ban the kickoff, and the same person is then having a crack at the New South Wales and Queensland coaches for not doing enough to make the game more, to talk up the brutality before the game and to have a bit more brutality in the game. And then they want the state of origin refs and the grand final referee to put the whistle away. But then in an NRL Golden Point game, where a loss for the Warriors meant that they fall 5 points behind Canterbury, a win for the Warriors meant that they're only going to be 1 point behind Canterbury. So that game, both teams on a bye after the game, it was a semi-final game. And I talked about this in the podcast last week. And most of these games, and we saw so many of them on the weekend, are so important to teams. Even teams like the Titans can make the finals. And they're playing like it. There's desperation week in, week out. And there's a couple of teams cruising at the moment who are just going to hit the accelerator that we're going to see and pull away from the rest. And hopefully we're able to catch on to that and be in a position where we can challenge them at the end of the year. But the point I'm making is that these games are so important, yet they want the ref to put the whistle away in a big game because of the pressure, apparently, and because it's the best sides are playing. But then they carry on about a Golden Point game where the ref didn't penalise, certain things and help one team over the other and vice versa. The media need to stop their bullshit. The commentators, the journalists need to sit there and protect the game. And they protect the game by removing these things, these accidental head clashes, even the hip drops to a point. The hip drops, suspensions for hip drops. There needs to be more of a warning system in place. Is it a sin binnable offence? Yeah, you lose a player, they break their ankle. It's happened for years. I think it's become more of a problem due to the speed of the game and players trying to hold on to a player to try and drag him down. But these accidents, I'm not talking about carelessness either. You're running in to tackle someone, you get no reward for tackling low and holding on to them around the legs. There's no reward for that. If you don't let go, you get penalised, right? So players are sitting there putting their head into dangerous positions, which has meant we're having more people getting knocked out making the tackles than ever before. The game needs to look at itself internally, and the journalists need to help, not hinder. But these people like Dean Ritchie, who go on about ban the kickoff, but then say they want to basically see some rough and tumble in Origin and let it go. Oh, yeah, so Suaalii knocks out Reece Walsh, play on. To me, that was a send-off or a sin bin or whatever they did. It had to be off the field for some point of time. But it should be clear-cut, that sort of thing. You've launched in, hit him in the face with the shoulder. If you launch in, hit him in the head with your head, that's probably a little bit different. We saw Latrell, I think, did that. He come in for a cover tackle to save a try, hit Manu in the face, smashed his face. We saw Latrell do the same thing to the Fox. Fox got concussed, but his face didn't get smashed. Now, if the Fox's face got smashed, do you think there would have been a send-off? Probably. I don't know. But in this game, I'm sick to death of these commentators and journalists constantly talking about things which are making the game get more confused. And what we do see from the NRL and the refs is that when the journalists apply pressure, we see changes. We see changes in the interpretations. You look at when they do their magic round focuses, and all of a sudden they started sin binning everyone in magic round. They did that for a couple of years in a row. We see these little, the start of every year they focus on play the balls, and then they don't focus on it. This year, you don't even have to play the ball with your foot. Just roll it between it. It's fine. It's actually, if the ref lets it go, it means there's less chance of you having a knock on, because you just roll it through your legs, and then just bring your leg over it. Getting off track, but the fact of the matter is the NRL seem to, when the media talk things up and make big fucking hoo-ha about this, that, and the other when it comes to head contact and whatever else. All this bullshit about, back in the day it was rougher and tougher. Send-offs were always send-offs back in the day, right? They were always send-offs. Back in the day, I never saw too many big men smashing little men, and there was always little men chirping at big men. Tommy Raudonikis was pretty small, man, and he didn't just take on halfbacks; he'd go anyone. Who cares if there's a bit of push and shove? Like, they're just so focused on creating division and upsetting certain fan bases where their teams are struggling. And, Latrell's the hero this week. He's the villain next week when they lose. Nico Hines. Oh, how's Nico feeling because the Sharks are losing? Like this how's Nico approach. He doesn't want that. He's playing like a bit of a timid footballer at the moment, and he's not, he's getting a pretty decent foundation from his forward pack and his back three, and he's messed up a few things. But that's a thing for halves. But you got to remember, he's still a young half. But the problem is, it's the media who take this yay or nay approach, this one way or the other. They're on his side when he's doing well. When he's not doing well, he's the problem. And fans, especially of opposition sides, but even from the same clubs, they get sick of hearing about how great a player is in their team. And then all of a sudden, as soon as things start going backwards, all the focus then becomes on that player, which puts more pressure on them, which makes it harder for them. And people will sit there and they'll say, oh, they get paid the big bucks. That person's on $900,000 a year. They don't have. Well, that's what they got paid. That's what they wanted. It doesn't mean that you go out there and criticize them the way you have to, the way that you do. I'll say it now. Nico Hines is not playing he's playing more like a bottom four halfback than a top four halfback. But I feel his team plays a game which is top four. In the meters they make, the defensive commitments that they have through a lot of the time, they're a good side, a well-balanced side. The same things, they do it to try and do it to Josh Adokar at the Bulldogs. They try and do it to Matt Burton, and fans play into it because there's fans in our Canterbury club who sit there and go, who watch Matt Burton and go, oh, he's a centre. He's not controlling things. But I don't think our forward pack's been too dominant in any game that I've ever seen. And Serrato this year has now changed it to sort of, it's all on defence and field position, and through his kicking game, we're able to get that. And through the defensive resolve of the team, we're able to be in the right spots in the field. And we go all right. Attack's been pretty bad the last couple of weeks, but I'm getting off track. The boys, the Canterbury Bankstown team, have come from a long way back. We've suffered a lot of, adversity. when it comes through this rebuild. But my issue is with the way the media go about it. Look, they're always going to see things and report things as they see them, and you can't begrudge people for that. But it's this constant bringing to the table these stories and these agendas which do nothing but force the NRL into a position where they have to change rules and change the fabric of the game. And I fucking hate it. I need the media. We need the media as a fan base to shut the fuck up. Stop talking. I know it's obviously horrible. You know, Mario Fennick, Ian Roberts, Jammer, heaps of them have got issues with dementia, which was likely caused from the collisions that they had, especially with contacts to the head in playing the game of rugby league. But every single one of them, even knowing what would have happened for the last few years of their life, I really can't speak for them, but in my opinion, I believe every one of them would have chosen the path that they went on, regardless. They know they would have. As young boys, they wouldn't have cared. We can't look at the game as like, oh, if you do these things in your life, there's going to be consequences. Every time you drink a beer, every time you just step into a car, there is risks involved. There's risks involved in everything we do. Going to work every day, we are risking our lives. That's a fact. I don't have to sign a disclaimer. If I go for a ride on the bike and the pedal slips, could have been, you know, a slightly loose screw somewhere and I hit my head and crack my head open. I get concussion. G'day, Scary79. This will be ending pretty quickly, mate. It was just a quick little rant from me about the media and the way that they discuss a lot to do with head collisions and stuff like that, and the way that I think that they're putting the game into danger. But look, I've got to finish this up. Got to pick my daughter up from school, so it was just a quick one today. But guys, don't buy into it. The media need to be better in the way that they talk about our game. They need to be promoting that the NRL does something to protect itself from litigation, that everyone knows what they enter into when they play rugby league, that things can happen, things can go wrong, you know, and you can't control these humans and individuals to get everything right and get everything perfect. Even when they fix games up and make suspensions, you're still going to have players get smacked in the head. You know, what are we going to start doing? Sending rugby league players to jail for assault? That's what it's eventually going to get to. It's a full contact sport. Thanks for that, Scary. And shit needs to be done the right way. The media need to come out and take it off the table. We're not going to talk about this anymore. You know, he was hit in the head. He knows the risks. He knows the consequences. Penalty. Accidental head clashes. No more sending players off for an accidental head clash. No more suspensions for an accidental head clash. What a ridiculous notion. And media and commentators don't sit there and tell and get up the fucking refs for putting the whistle away in Golden Point, when on the other hand, you're telling everybody that Adam G was the best referee of all time because he hardly blew a penalty in a grand final and he let the teams play. Because as Graham Annesley says, and he's 100% right, every game he adjudicates, they look at every single penalty that in a game that if they review a full game, they look at every single penalty that could have been called. And they could call up to 50, 60, 70 or 80 penalties per game if they wanted to. There is someone breaching a rule somewhere nearly every play of the game. That's just the way it is. So we just need to, you know, have our little whinge at the time. Oh, That was offside. Move on. At the end of the game, they were offside all game. Next time we might get to be offside. You know, the commentators and the media need to take these things off the table and stop making the NRL pressured into changing rules which are going to fuck our game completely. You know, the fact that, like, shoulder charges. I don't even remember many shoulder charges hitting the face, and I don't know if we've had any less hits to the head since they banned the shoulder charge. I'd like to see that. Because Sonny Bill was fucking good at it. He used to hit his target in the chest with his shoulder. And that was using his weak arm. You know, his other side. He didn't even use his proper shoulder half the time to protect it. He was phenomenal at it. And lots of players were. And now they got rid of it. And then you have, people do shoulder charges to stop a try, which they've always done. And then, as I said, Latrell, basically a shoulder charge or a hip or whatever it is, collects the fox high, not even penalised for it. And no one seemed to carry on about that. They need to sit there and defend the game of rugby league and take it off the table. They need to put pressure on the NRL and say, as journalists, look, the game, we know what the game is. It's a contact sport, as Scary summed it up. It's a full contact sport, and that's the end of it. Players need to have that dealt with when they sign their contracts. The game gets protected. It's not for everyone. And I can tell you now, most people are drawn to rugby league because of the impacts, because of the, that it's a war and that somebody can then come out of it and do something spectacular. That's what attracts people to the game, not to a game where we go, we scored 44 points and, everyone tackles around the legs and yah. Anyway, guys, I'm off. Thank you for tuning in. If you do, leave some comments. Tell me your thoughts if you think I'm wrong. When you've got someone who, I just had an auntie die of vascular dementia. She wasn't playing rugby league. There's people who have suffered from taking too many hits to the head with it, no matter what they were doing or what sport they were in. It's obviously not a good thing, and I feel for those people. But when you play this game and you're good enough to play it and you want to play it for the contact. That's what you're there for. And sometimes the contact goes wrong, and you know that. And while it's a tough thing to deal with, that's part of the game. And for these journalists to sit there and continually throw it down our necks that we need to stop this and stop that, just so that they can divide opinion and get some fucking clicks, all they're doing is helping to destroy the game and send it to a place where it's no longer attractive, where the impacts aren't there. As they get more physical and as they get more athletic in our game of rugby league, the impacts are only going to get stronger. So I don't know what they're going to do. Put fucking those bloody sumo suits on them all so they can all be protected and wear fucking bubbles. Is that where we're going to head in NRL? Because this is what the media are helping to accomplish. They need to shut the fuck up. They need to take it off the table and say this needs to be dealt with legally in the contracts. And if someone isn't prepared to put their body on the line in that sort of function and understand things can go wrong, NRL is not for them. They can play Oztag, touch, or something else. Anyway, that's my thoughts. Thanks for tuning in. Go the Dogs and go New South Wales.